Right, we're good to go. Right, no mai haere mai. Welcome everyone to our first Cambridge Community Board meeting of this year. I'd like to start by just acknowledging some of the people who have been suffering some devastation and loss over across the district the last couple of, this last week. We know our council is working hard through that response process at the moment. And then we'll move to recovery. And in fact, QC Downey, who usually sits here this evening, was unable to come tonight because she's dealing with that response. So yeah, just want to just pause and acknowledge that there are some people going through a pretty tough time at the moment. Welcome, Katie, to the table tonight. I'd like to welcome members of the public. We also have Mayor Mike Pettit, who's just popped in, Councillor Dale-Marie Morgan, and then also Liz Stolwick, Waikato Regional Councillor, who's joined us tonight. So thank you so much for coming. We have a few people in the public forum tonight, which is wonderful. And hello to those of you who are on the live stream tonight. So we have a good sized agenda this evening, so we'll try and keep this meeting nice and tight. And before we kick off, I also want to acknowledge that it's Chinese New Year. So Happy New Year, everyone. Okay, so it looks like we've got apologies from Member Stuart Dromgold tonight. So could I move that we accept those apologies? And second, Angela? Yeah, okay, great. And now we'll move into disclosure of members' interests. Would anyone like to update us on any conflicts of interest? Thanks, Monty. No one else? Okay. Okay. Right, we'll just go on to the public forum in that case. So first up, we have Judy Brown, who's joining us this evening. Would you like to come up, Judy?
Thank you. My name is Judy Brown and I live in Cambridge. I've recently joined a organisation called Keep New Zealand Beautiful, which used to be around in 1967. And I did this because I'm passionate about getting rid of weeds. That's one obsession I have. But the other one is I'm always picking up rubbish. And this hall here is 20 minutes worth of picking up rubbish between the Grisselina hedge that backs onto Amber Nurseries. There's a footpath there, you come from the velodrome, there's a footpath, and then there's a drop and a Grisselina hedge. And between the footpath and the hedge, there was this much rubbish that I picked up in 20 minutes. I'm really happy to pick it up. I'm always picking up rubbish, but what do I do with it? It's too contaminated to go in my wheelie bin, and therefore I would have to pay $5 to put it in my yellow bag. Now I've contacted Wayne Gaisley, who is the who is the head of Keep New Zealand Beautiful. It's been reinvigorated after 50, 60 years, and he says to that councils quite often let you put a black bag and that you can put a sticker on it, maybe not as big as this, but Keep New Zealand Beautiful, just so that the operator doesn't think you're just shoving in a whole lot of garden or household rubbish. Carol Lamb, who picks up rubbish in Taupo, in 10 years has picked up 18 tonnes. So we're talking about quite a lot of rubbish. 8 tonnes from Whakatane. Altogether, the volunteers have picked up 25 tonnes, I should say, tonnes of rubbish. And that's around Taupo, Whakatane. So it's just a question I'm bringing to you. What do I do with it? I'm happy to pick it up. As much as possible, I will recycle it. Like I can recycle that. But that, nobody wants that. I don't know.
Would anyone like to ask any questions?
Are there any responses? Or shall I just leave it in your court to think about and you can get back to me? The other thing was, I sent you a photo also of the rubbish bins in Dunedin. And since we're talking about rubbish, my daughter took that photo. I'm very impressed with the rubbish bins in Dunedin, and I think Cambridge should up their ante and do similar. The rubbish bins in town are all colour coded, sorted with cans, bottles, and general rubbish. They have Maori and English, which I think is a great thing because we can extend our vocabulary. And I'd love to see that done in Cambridge. We could be forerunners in the Waikato.
Yeah, thank the community, you're asking the community board to help set up some mixed recycling glass and rubbish bins similar to the photo that you've circulated.
Yes, that would be number one. And the second thing is, can I have permission to put a black rubbish bin by the rubbish bin somewhere with a sticker on to say keep New Zealand beautiful? Because I know there's a man, I have a rubbish bin directly across the road from me on Thornton Road, and there's a man in a blue Mitsubishi who regularly drops off his household rubbish. I can give you his number plate if you wanted to. He's in a suit every time and he drops off his household rubbish.
Yeah, perfect. So this is potentially something that we could talk to council staff about as part of the waste minimisation program. And yeah, and happy to do that. Any other?
Well,
yeah, and actually, I don't think anyone's asked me this before about how to get rid of rubbish that they've personally collected. So, really good idea. And the community board, yeah, could be taking that back to Brian's team to ask advice on that, because your request is very specific. Could they just be placed beside the council bins that are being emptied by council contractors?
Yes.
If they had the appropriate sticker? That's cool. And then the second part, yeah, this more extensive piece of work around what the recycling upgrade could look
the
like.
rubbish bins in town really are reflective of the 1950s. I don't think they would have changed from my childhood, you know, dump everything in. And in the 1950s, there wasn't all this problem of plastic and cans. It was basically very simple rubbish then.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank
Thank
you
you
so
very
much. I've noted that down, and that's certainly something that the community.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Okay, so Eileen, would you like to come up? Eileen is from Safer Cambridge Trust and would like to give us a quick update on their mahi.
Sure. I'm just going to stand because I don't do my back to many people. And a lot of you will know what I'm going to say today, but there are some new people on the community board, so I'd like to introduce ourselves to you so you know a little bit about what we do. So imagine a Cambridge where every neighbour feels supported, every neighbourhood is well connected, and also every community knows what to do in case of an adverse event. Well, that's what we've been working on in the last 16 years with our charitable trust. We've been working for a robust, safe and resilient Cambridge in the town and the rural areas. So we're not a government agency or anything like that. We don't get any funding. We exist solely on grants and donations. And that's because our work genuinely affects our community in a positive way. Now, what do we do exactly? Well, we work with streets and we educate them on safety from crime. There are so many things the street can do to be safe from crime, and we do the education around that. And then, perhaps I will sit down, shall I? And then you can all hear at least. And then when that education takes and they're working together on that, then we introduce education around emergency preparedness so that so that they're building a really safe network within their street. But then we move on from that to work into street. So we have a street coordinator in each street. They actually communicate with one another. So they might tell each other if there's somebody suspicious in the street or if they've had a burglary in that street. And so it really makes a really good, vigilant and strong network in that whole area. We also work in the rural areas and where people can often feel quite isolated, but being part of a network really makes a difference to them. And we do all of this because we know research shows, and we're really big on research, that when neighbours work together, we can reduce burglary rates, we can improve emergency response, and people just feel more supported. So of course, wellbeing grows in that area. There are some other things we do from time to time as well, like we're just near the end of rolling out 200 first aid courses. They were heavily subsidised due to the community board's donation to us, which we're most grateful for. And that was really just to lift the safety of the whole area with that 200 first aid, 200 more first aid trained people. We have also been running a children's citizenship program, working with young children and helping them to recognise what they can do in their community with the hope that later on they will be good community people. So in regard to the emergency preparedness, just some specifics, as you'll be very aware of right now, Cambridge can be subject to any of the happenings that have happened across the country. Christchurch had had 5 moderate earthquakes over the 40 years before those earthquakes. They didn't expect an earthquake, so we can't be complacent. So we work with neighbourhoods on making an emergency plan, and they'll list here the skills in the area in their particular street. So here we've got somebody who is a retired nurse. You might have somebody with other medical qualifications, somebody with military training is here. On the back, they've got some equipment that they can use in their street to share in case of an emergency. Somebody has a backup generator, somebody has an independent water supply, etc., etc. And most importantly, the people here who say that they need help in case they need help to evacuate in case of an emergency, so that they won't muck around. They know to go to those people first in their street and offer them help in case of an evacuation. And again, you know, research shows that communities that work together on this kind of thing fare much better during an environmental event, and also they have less lengthy after effects afterwards as well. How do we do the work? Well, we have some really strong partnerships. We partner closely with the police, with Fire and Emergency, with St John's, with Neighbourhood Support New Zealand, with Community Patrol New Zealand, and with many other agencies. And we have these partnerships so that we can be sure that the information that we're giving out is accurate. And some of you may have seen my crime report that I put out on a weekly basis on Facebook, and that information comes directly from the police database in Wellington. We also build bridges between communities and some of those agencies. So we encourage a trusting relationship between the community and the police, and we encourage all of our citizens to report in regard to crime, because Cambridge is known for under-reporting, which means, of course, that we don't know about some of the crime. Police can't build a picture, and then they can't catch the criminals as quickly as they might otherwise. And our partners value us because we bring self-reliance to streets, and that in turn can ease the pressure on social and government agencies. So that's us in a nutshell. I wanted to tell you a little bit about that. I think I've just briefly mentioned the patrol, but of course they're out there patrolling 6 to 7 days each week as well, and they're part of us working closely with the police there. We, again, just a charitable trust. We will come to you from time to time. sometimes asking for financial help, but sometimes just for advocacy or visibility or general partnership. And I just leave you with one call to action today, and that would be, please be involved in your own streets. If you don't already have a neighbourhood support group, please create one. We're here to help you. We'd like the community board to really model that connectedness that we're working so hard to build. So thanks very much for having me, and I hope you know a little bit more about us now.
Yeah, wonderful. Thanks, Eileen.
I attended the trust meeting the other day, when was it? And the passion and the hardworking people there is just absolutely amazing. So thank you very much for keeping us safe.
Thanks, Gerda.
Eileen, the chart you had, the capability
Yeah.
and requirements street by street, how good a coverage have you managed to get on that? Because I think it was 2 or 3 years ago that initiative got launched, didn't it?
Well, we have been trucking along slowly. Probably we've got about 30 streets, something like that, which doesn't seem like a lot. But then again, if you had 30 streets that were self-reliant, there's still 30 streets left that you don't need to attend to as quickly. So it's a slow process. But then again, all of our work can be slow because we have such a small resource.
And do you hold those, or the community coordinator, or both?
Well, we hold them because we promise everybody that we won't share their data beyond our database. So the police can send messages through us, and we'll send them to people through our database. Same with civil defence. However, just recently, Kathy Shaw has asked to hold the details on their database, particularly the details about who needs help in case of an evacuation. And so I went out to all of the people listed there and asked them if they were happy with that, and they said that they were. So we will be sharing those, as long as Kathy can show that they've got the correct security in place, etc., which I'm sure that they do. We'll share that with them as well.
Any other questions? Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to come along
That's
this
all right.
evening. And yeah,
pleasure.
please continue to do so.
Thanks. Great. Thanks.
Charlotte, can I just one comment here? In the last long-term plan, when we went through the submission process, we didn't change a single thing except increasing the budget going to your charity, because we're convinced of the quality job that was happening. Keep it
Thanks
up.
very much. Thank you.
Okay, so Barry Quayle, would you like to come and join us? Nice to see you this evening. Thanks for coming. You can take it away when you
Pleasure to be
fancy.
here. Thank you. And first of all, I want to really recognise that council has said that this community board is going to be looked to for Cambridge connections. And I'd like to say that's fantastic. There's more of an emphasis on Cambridge people feeding into Cambridge connections through this council. So a big plus there. I want to speak on that matter. I have a quite extensive background in project management and then in project governance more latterly, as well as within the roading sphere. Now, today's meeting, you've got an agenda item number 3, which is considering absolutely on time for the minister's announcement today. Did you hear that? And the Infrastructure Commission and what they said. And essentially, putting it in a nutshell, the Infrastructure Commission put out a report and effectively said that government has got so much infrastructure and asset renewals and repairs work that they cannot achieve it with their funding that they've allocated for decades. And the minister also said that he's going to extend out the time for the roads of national importance for funding them. So he was expecting, I think, in their when they started in government, of saying all these were going to start within 10 years. That's not even going to happen. They're not even going to get near it. Not even less than quarter of them are even going to start in the next 15 to 20 years. So why this is significant to Cambridge Connections is because the government and NZTA is going to pull in finance for anything that doesn't have, in fact, NZTA have now released recently that their whole strata is you must rely on your current assets, and you must rely on looking at enhancing those to achieve your objectives, not looking to try and put in new infrastructure, i.e. a new bridge. Now, that might come as a bit of a shock to people around here, but the reality is government is not going to front up in 40 and 50 years to anything on that front. I'll put a wager on that one. So what we've got, how do we deal with this thing? Well, first thing on your one of your key papers today has a appendix which has a chart which I'll just get to the particular chart. This page here, when you get to that page there, I point to the limitations and resilience of river crossings, which is a problem statement. And it says in here to improve the resilience of the transport system by reducing the risk of network failures. Yeah, it makes sense. Faster recovery of unplanned events makes sense. The next one is the one that I'm asking you to focus on because I don't think it's correct now. Reducing dependency on existing corridors and bridges. That's virtually saying you're not going to focus on enhancing your ability with the current infrastructure bridge to deal with more traffic. So, and then you look at the critical success factors directly below that, and it says that the critical success factors are capital costs, maintenance, operating costs, funding availability, and also timing and sequence, and so on and so forth. So that's pointing very clearly that you are not able to fund that bridge inside probably 50 or more years. So any business case which is done in this next few terms is going to fall well short of anything that's considered for a bridge that far out. So what should happen? I'm going to make a submission to the connections. Essentially, what we have to look at is a time frame saying what can be done in the 20 to 30 year time frame, and a new bridge is not possible in that time frame. So, you know, it's not possible. So the question is, you've got all these new subdivisions appearing, you know, in the Leamington area more and more, and it's going to keep going. And essentially, no body sitting as a commissioner is going to turn down a request for an application for building a subdivision, because Cambridge is happy to see it growing fast. But what we have now is we're going to have an overburdened, particularly Shakespeare Bridge, its capacity is going to be held back. That would be the cheapest option to actually expand to 3 lanes or 4 lanes, because it's not a very long span, and already there's land each side of it. You don't have to buy any land. Basically, it's an easy option. The second is, as I made a submission once before, the on-ramps at Newcombe Road. Don't worry about the off-ramps because they're too expensive. Yeah, the on-ramps, the land is already there. It allows traffic, particularly the heavy traffic, the sand trucks that are coming out of Newcombe Road, to get access onto the freeway. The only other comment I'd make about that roading is, for the sake of all the schools that are off Victoria Road and all those roads there and all those catchments, and for all the traffic that's going to increase on Victoria Road, we have to do that on-ramp to get that heavy traffic away from the city centre. And also it will ensure, if you get that at least partially, using a state highway that you don't have to fund maintenance of for moving heavy trucks from one side to the other over to the area from this side. So those sort of things are important. And the only other side we need to deal with it is a new slip lane off Victoria Road that literally bypasses the roundabout and takes you through to, you know, the area where you're at the beginning of that whole theatre area. There's the road that runs through there to that road there. So a slip lane that goes off and lines up with that roundabout at the that roundabout you see there. So I'm going to put all that in my submission on, but under item 3, I suggest that you strongly consider the wording that's in your appendix there and the thrust of saying we're going to focus on a new bridge. I watch the council meetings regularly and all the other committee meetings. There's a lot of emphasis on the relationship with NZTA. The relationship counts for nothing when you get to funding. When you get to funding, it's only on what is the priority around the country, and therefore you're going to slip down the list against anything that's in the Auckland, Wellington, Christchurch, Tauranga. You won't even be, or even Hamilton, you won't even be competing in those environments. So I just say I'm really pleased to see this community board being involved. I'm really pleased to see the mayor recognising this community board as having a lot of inputs, and I'll make myself available as just an interested resident. I'm also on the committee of the Cambridge Men's Shed, and we do a lot for the community in different ways. So thank you for your time.
Yeah,
Open for
fantastic, Barry.
questions.
Thank you. And of course, you can stay for item 3.
Yes, I
And
will be.
listen in, which Katie will take us through shortly.
Thank you.
Would any members like to ask Barry questions before he departs the chair?
Barry, you're talking about making the Shakespeare Street Bridge 4 lanes,
Yes.
but that's where, okay, but then you get to this side, you still got to go across the Karapiri Street, and you still need to get the traffic down Albert Street,
Yes.
Queen Street. So you really, I don't know whether you'd actually achieve very much, to be honest.
Yeah, it must be done in concert with on-ramps at Newcombe Road. So you've got to have those on-ramps to make it work effectively, but essentially to get across that river is a key obstacle for the people living, you know, half of Cambridge potentially is going to be one side. You are going to be restricted by what can happen with the old bridge. You know, over years that will become less and less resilient. So we have to think, what can we do to enhance what we've got for the next 30 years? And how can we revisit the roading on the other side, on this side, in terms of roundabouts and the Newcombe Road on-ramps? Thank you.
Any other questions?
Right.
Okay.
Making comments, right?
Yeah.
Just, I love how you're thinking about this. Stay involved. You know, we're at the community
Very happy
brainstorming
to.
session right now. And so all your ideas should be being fed
Yep.
through into our long list. Okay.
I
So,
will
so
be
keep
making
involved
submission.
and it was, yeah, great presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks, Chair.
All right. Councillor Morgan, would you like to say a few words to us?
Tēnā
Kia ora.
koutou. Rauranga tiro Mark. So, just your Māori board here who thought she'd compliment the community board. Firstly, Rauranga tiro mā tēnā koutou, and I acknowledge the west side of the community, of our district,
and the unfortunate happenings that have happened over there over the last couple of days. I take my hat off to all the first responders and to those in council that have been working tirelessly to get things back up on track. So tēnā tātou. I have been speaking to Councillor Montgomery and to the chair about something that we do in Waikato District, because I'm an elected member at the Community Board in Ngāti Wāhia, and we have the Māori Ward come and present a report every month, and I thought it could be something that we could introduce here, considering I bring a strong voice from these communities, and I don't often see the communities that I bring a voice for around this table or in this space. So I've just written a bit of an A4 for everybody, not for everybody, but if you'd like a copy, I'm sure Charlotte or Monty will be able to share. All it does is it recognises some significant people that we've lost in our community over the summer. Whaia Sophie Tipene of Taitokiro, but she lived her entire life here in Cambridge. She was a teacher and she was a significant member of our community here in Kimuriti. Robin Nightingale, she was another person who was quite integral to the Maunga Tautiri setup of the Ecological Island Trust, and she was involved in a lot of things, had over 30 years involvement, I know, from Gary Diet with council. And lastly, and but not least, Karaitiana Mac Tamatia. He was a significant figure for Ngāti Koroki Kahukura, and his tangi was a tribute to that over the Wakaama event. Moi mai rā, koutou rā. I have a list and I won't read them out, because if anyone would like a copy of what the Māori Ward get-ups to and the communities of ours that I frequent, there is quite a long list, because as one of only 3, like our last deputy mayor, only the mayor, the deputy and myself cover the entire district. So it is a significant list, and of course it jumped up significantly from Saturday, and I didn't include it in here, but if you're warm to that, I can bring another one next month. Tēnā tātou.
That would be great. Thank you. And definitely send that through and we'll circulate it, because we really love to have a regular update and make sure that actually that we have opportunities as well to engage with you and the broader community as well. So yeah, really welcome that. Any questions from the members?
I know you're you're requesting maybe a sort of a monthly briefing, just, could you achieve that on a quarterly basis? I'm just trying to think about, sort of frequency and those sorts of things.
You're welcome to respond.
Through the chair. I suppose I would probably give back a question, Pip, and say, how much does the Community Board engage with Māori communities to reflect the interest of all communities being reflected at this table?
Taken.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you so much, Councillor Morgan. And Liz, would you like to join us as well? I don't think we need to introduce you.
I will keep this brief. Hi, everybody. Look, I just wanted to actually, Charlotte and I were just together at a meeting this afternoon. This afternoon. So I wanted just to come and introduce myself, probably to those who are mostly online, I guess. So I do know you all around the table. But yeah, and was elected as the new Waikato Regional Councillor back at the last election. So yeah, it's been a new challenge and one I've enjoyed to date. But I just really wanted to reach out and say, I'm here, I'm visible, I'm interested obviously in Waipa issues, particularly Cambridge. I was always a Cambridge councillor, so you're my favourite. That won't change. But I also know that public transport is something that is still very dear to you, especially with the Cambridge connections. And I know that staff at the Regional Council are very involved, Phil King in particular, our Director of Transport. So I have ended up with a transport portfolio, so I'm chairing the Regional Transport Committee. And if you're have any issues around the service between Leamington and Hamilton. I'm always interested to hear what concerns or changes you would like to see. We are working through a lot of policy reviews, but I also wanted to make mention of the new Community Transport Fund. It's $500,000. It's now open and available for a wide variety of community groups to apply to. And it's a substantial fund, so it's something that groups should be aware of. So I wanted to just let everyone know about that. And lastly, just to ensure that you know who I am, that I'm here to serve my community as always. So happy to hear from you. Also have a dual role. I'm still, of course, out at Lake Karapiro. We have, goodness me, still a number of events still to work through. We start the Rowing Nationals tomorrow. And of course, that is something that I know brings an enormous benefit to Cambridge. So nothing has changed there either. So here and willing to hear from you if you have any concerns about transport or even any Karapiro issues, but largely the regional council role.
So just a quick question. Could you just elaborate on that funding?
I thought you were ears might
and what that includes, because obviously there's a lot of philanthropic
well, I
groups
tell you what, it was something I never knew about until recently. So it has been increased to $500,000. It is a community transport fund. It's largely applied to by groups like St. John's House Shuttles. I know the Cambridge Community House Trust also apply to it and receive funding. So there are a number of local organisations, but hey, you've got to be in to win, right? So please ensure that if there's any other groups that might benefit, please, now that there's been an increase in funding, it's important that we let everyone know that it's there and available. And that off the bat too, that the total mobility fund that we've had, that particular fund has decreased. That came as a result from decreased funding from central government. So that's just something else to keep in mind. There may be community groups who are, potentially falling short, or people or individuals that need a bit more assistance going forward.
Thanks for that, Liz.
No problem.
Any questions?
Good evening, Liz. Thanks for your presentation. Maybe just a few sentences on the reform and change that we might be seeing at the Regional Council for the community to be aware of.
Yeah, sure. That's exactly what Charlotte and I were just doing before this, actually speaking to another group around that. Look, I don't think I know anything more than probably what you already know. So reform is here to reshape both local and regional councils going forward. It was announced, obviously, that regional councillors would be replaced at some point during this triennium by the CTB, which is going to be a collection of Waikato mayors. And so that submission of that process is in train right now. We'll probably receive a bit more further information and clarity, I think, in March, once all the submissions that central government has worked through. But I think, this is certainly the start of reform around local government in general. And of course, coupled with that is the Resource Management Act reform as well. So it's kind of hand in hand around how communities such as Cambridge will be changing in the future, and how the current government is looking to drive, I guess, a more fruitful economy going forward.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Oh, another question.
Liz, do you have any more information about the algal blooms in the lakes on the Waikato River you can inform us about?
Right. Okay. So do I have more information? No. So obviously over Christmas we had a number of algae blooms, mostly in the South Waikato area, mostly around Maraetai, where residents were seeing that the algae bloom just got to the point where it was unswimmable, and people were certainly getting sick. There is a lot of concern around that. Probably there's a lot of factors that contribute to that. I think we've got a number of hydro dams on the Waikato River. We've got a lot of hornwort growing in the Waikato River that we spray regularly with Diquat, and we will be spraying next week. We have the clam, the gold clam, the invasive gold clam that came to our shores 3 years ago, and that filters the water greatly, and we see faster growing of hornwort. So all of those factors contribute to probably the health and well-being of the Waikato River going forward. We know that, that there are definitely moves afoot to try to improve the quality of the water, and that's a key role of obviously of the regional council. But you know, communities' voices are really important, and certainly, yeah, we're listening at the moment. There's no quick fix. That's the bottom line. And in terms of managing the hornwort, which we do need to do, if we don't manage it through spraying, we cannot operate events, we cannot swim, we cannot operate vessels safely in the water because the hornwort just really takes over and it's so thick, it turns into like a carpet in a way. So over Christmas myself, I witnessed a 1.6 kilometre train of hornwort floating down the river. And yeah, that's a real safety issue for a lot of people. So no quick fixes, unfortunately, Andrew, but we're certainly aware of it. A lot of community groups are concerned around the health and well-being of the river. And it's going to certainly take a lot of organisations, it's going to take a number of organisations to sort of group together and think about what we're going to do going forward. I know that Waipa District Council is working towards, you know, funding a, you know, probably through a user pay system, looking at creating a fund that might help, yeah, try and fund some ongoing solutions. But there isn't that's nothing at this point is confirmed. So it's a work in progress, that's for sure. I know me and Mike's all over it.
Thanks,
Well, I
Liz.
make sure that he is all over it.
Yeah, I think we'll have to probably just leave the questions there, just given time.
Yes,
But
of course, yeah.
obviously, you know, again, it would be really lovely to see you pop in more, and especially once we've got more progress around the submissions and what happens in post-March. That would be really interesting to hear from you again.
Watch the space,
Yeah.
absolutely. All right, thanks.
Okay, great.
Mhm.
Thanks so much, Liz. And Mia and Mike, would you like to come up for your 5 minutes?
Oh, someone time me, please. All right, thank you, Community Board. Good to be back at the different end of the table. Look, again, a quick update on what's happening with the state of emergency. So it was announced last Saturday. I'll move pretty quickly. The reason it was announced across the whole district is because then you can pull resources from the entire district in case you need them. And I was particularly thinking about water assets and that sort of thing with the issues that we potentially have at Pirongia. So that's why it was district-wide, not just western side of a district, because I understand on this side, you know, people may be wondering, yeah, we had a bit of rain and that was it. But when you get up in a helicopter, you can see the extent of the damage. It's significant. It's in the millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars. I could go on with that. And there was these short-term, medium and longer-term fixes and decisions that council will have to make down the track. I'd just like to give a shout out firstly to initially our staff who just came on board seamlessly and got into their work, got into their mahi and have worked every day since really. To all the contractors that are out there, you know, they're on board instantly as well. We've got good relationships with them and they stood up. And then the emergency services, yeah, particularly for all three of them, fire, police and AMBO. So, yeah, dropped in and saw the crew at very briefly at Pirongia last night who had to deal with the death, as I think you mentioned. I arrived a minute or so late, of the gentleman in Aotearoa district, but he was actually from Pirongia. Yeah, so we had a quick and then done a couple of some community events and that sort of thing just to try and keep people up to speed. But just a couple of things, they're all over the other sort of districts, so some of these roads you may not know. But Corcoran Road, it's sort of the back of Pirongia way to I'll leave it there, sorry. And there's a big culvert damage there. There was a lake in behind there that's been worked on at the moment. So the people were evacuated from there. So they're still out until that's deemed safe. And everything comes out of the emergency, the EOC Operations Centre, which is based out of Aotearoa. So all decisions are made there, but those people unfortunately won't be able to go back until it's safe, hopefully not too long away, but they're working as quick as they can and giving people above that road that's been shut off. They're building some tracks as we speak, so how long that takes to give them some better access. Whāturi Road, so that's more Wharepapa South way. Several residents trapped there. We dropped in, I think it was yesterday or the day before, we dropped in there and touched base with them. They're actually in good spirits. They're supporting each other like a lot of these residents do. Yeah, and that's where that sort of neighbourhood support really does come in, to be fair. And as we were with them, diggers were arriving to fix the issue there. And again, it's a washed out culvert that's really been destroyed. And so they're physically, basically trapped in there really. And so, but again, that fix has been worked on as we speak. And hopefully very soon they'll have access. And then, of course, what they need is tanker access for the trucks, because that's right through districts around the milk issue that a lot of it's having to be spilled at the moment, unfortunately. So that, rural support are in there. Animal welfare is also an issue in some areas. So there's multiple facets of this that have been dealt with at the moment. Manati Road, which is actually just outside our district, to be fair, but we dropped in there as well because we heard some people were trapped there, which they were. They had road access as of yesterday morning. But again, they were looking after themselves as these sort of farming areas do. So everyone's done great. The Te Tahi Wea, which is fed around the Maungaweka stream, that feeds into a couple of storage ponds, and basically the weir and all the infrastructure, let's just say it's been pretty decimated. So yeah, so there's some decisions to be made there, but at the moment some temporary fixes have been sought for supplying Pirongia with water. And look, the people of Pirongia are doing a great job. We are able to keep up with demand, and there's some short-term fixes coming online hopefully very, very soon. I just don't want to put any timeframes on this, because if everything goes right, I sort of know, but if things don't, I don't want to create false hope. But people are working on it rapidly, and then longer term solutions. At the end of the day, that'll come back to councillors to make some decisions around some of these assets that have been critically damaged. Look, we had a couple of visits. So the Minister Mitchell came down, and he was very supportive of what we're doing and just offered any support, and just he went out and put boots on ground, so that was good. That even the Prime Minister's actually phoned just to see how everyone's going, and just give everyone a pat on the back for what's happening. So that was actually out of the blue and actually nice. And look, yeah. So look, for further, there's a mural fund being set up. So that's just been stood up over the next short period of time, and there's some money going in that from council. Government intend to put money into that too. And I think I just put out a Facebook or a little video today just asking, hey, anyone else who wants to contribute to that, anyone from the community, organisations, business, individuals can feed into that. That fund will be stood up, and any money not used will go into, it'll just sit there, it'll go into the next time something like this happens, so it'll sit there forever and a day. But yeah, just look, yeah, everyone's supporting everyone, people are working hard. It's managing, staff and that sort of thing, because it's a 24-hour thing. It's not a sort of 9 to 5. This goes every day. So it's just, the right people above me, keeping their people safe and making sure that the operations centre is actually going well. So again, just a huge, thanks to all the people, particularly over the western side of the district, who are sort of in this, a lot of them, the people of Pirongia who are putting up with a lot, and we've spent quite a bit of time in that area, down Wharepapa South area, and yeah, particularly to all our staff. Yep, so that's really just a brief overview. Look, the last thing is just, hey, the comms, the official comms comes out through the through Otaronga EOC, sorry, but Facebook, Anteno, the website, Civil Defence, those are your places to get information. You won't get it from just at the council directly. In other words, we're not writing stuff up. We'll do some Facebook little videos and that sort of thing, but the actual detail, the source of what is correct, and most up to date comes in the VOC. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Mayor Mike. And just acknowledging that your communication and Joe, you know, being very visible, showed up. So thank you so much. It must be very tiring. But yeah. Okay, would anyone else like to contribute to the public forum? No, okay. I think we'll just move on then with the rest of our agenda. So item number 2, confirmation of previous minutes. We have a recommendation that the Cambridge Community Board confirms the minutes of the meeting held on 4th of December 2025 as circulated with the agenda as true and correct record of proceedings. Would anyone like to move the minutes? Chris, in second. Pip, thank you. All in favour say aye. Against?
Yeah, against.
Would you like to make an amendment or?
Yeah, I just feel that the minute taking during that meeting was a little bit sparse for some of the comments made by the community board members. I referenced maybe some of the comments I made myself about the North Waipa South Hamilton spatial study update. There was a one-line comment made. Discussions were held about the financial cost of the loss of rural productive land to higher density use land. I think I probably questioned and spoke 5 to 10 minutes about the issues and the size. I just feel that there's more gravitas that should be put there about my my wording or what I said, and I felt that the minutes didn't accurately reflect that.
Okay, thanks for that. Well, yeah, do you want that noted in the minutes that you voted against? Okay.
Yeah, and I just hope that moving forwards, perhaps I feel like there is time available to take more notes from the comments made by the community board members and be referenced in the minutes. It's helpful for us to refresh when we're reading it for the next meeting to see what was put in there and to show that the community that we really are making comment for our constituents about the issues.
I think likewise, if there is something that we think should be noted in the minutes, if you could just proactively request that, that might also help. Okay. So we'll move on to Cambridge Connection Stage 2.1, developing transport ideas. Thank you, Katie. We'll let you take us through this one.
Thank you. There's a couple of things that I'm hoping to get feedback from the community board about today. So I'll take the paper as read, but just tune you into what the sort of those two things are in terms of where we're at with the project, and perhaps also just take the opportunity to respond to a couple of the comments that Barry Quayle has made as well. But I absolutely encourage you to make a full submission as well, obviously, but just for your benefit as well. So where we're at with the project at the moment is the sort of big brainstorm time to develop the long list of potential ideas, and that's what we're seeking feedback from the community board today. It's part of a large community engagement process that's running until the 9th of March. At which point we will then be applying the assessment criteria that you see in the strategic frame, based on the strategic framework in the appendix of the report, and taking the long list of ideas for endorsement to the Strategic Planning and Policy Committee on the 1st of April. From there, we obviously then start to refine those sorts of options and get into more granular detail about the ideas, the sorts of costs, what it would look like at the system level. So we have this extensive engagement process, and so thanks previously to the comments that you've made around the comms and engagement plan to make sure that we don't miss parts of our community. So what we'll be doing as well at the end of this time is based on the assessment criteria that we have to develop the long list, we will be looking to develop more granular criteria that we can then apply to get to the short list of ideas. And so feedback from you, that's the second part, feedback from you about, from a community perspective, what are the particularly important things that you would like to make sure are given due consideration, that we think about how we might weight any of those sorts of things, would form part of the advice to the Strategic Planning and Policy Committee as they confirm their shortlist criteria. So that's the purpose of the report today. Perhaps before I open up to you, a couple of the things that are important about the way that we are going about the work and the community engagement. So one is that as Barry's mentioned, we are really working to work through the NZTA intervention hierarchy, which is what I referred to, where you absolutely, and if I use the right words, because I got it up here, where there are 4 stages, and you obviously start with making sure that you integrate your land use and transport. And so that means that you don't actually need to travel nearly as far, if at all. It means then next you want to manage demand. And so again, this speaks to the sort of 2 steps about really making the most of what you've got. At the moment, obviously, we end up with peak congestion for a short period of time. How can you smooth that so actually you don't end up with that congestion? It's one way of managing that demand. Parking and the congestion around the demand for parking is another sort of component about how you might manage demand. The third one is deliberately called best use of existing system. And so this point about making the most of what you've got is absolutely key. And that might mean that the sorts of things you look at that stage would be, again, about, not that we have, we've got traffic lights at the moment, thinking about how do you give, like you might give bus priority at traffic lights to get through, for example. You might make sure that you have used different, you've made sure that you've prioritized different uses on different roads again, so that you can get them best flow through that time. So there's plenty of ways that you can make sure that you've made the most of what you've got before you get to the last step, which says consider last in the NZTA intervention hierarchy, which is new infrastructure. And that is because it is the most expensive and for large projects, it's obviously really time consuming as well. So that is absolutely the way that we are approaching the way that we will be clustering the feedback. It's the way that when we supplement the community feedback with technical input about those ideas, they will be absolutely focused on each of those 4 stages of the intervention hierarchy. And for example, as we work with the community reference group, we are working through and brainstorming each of the levels of the engagement of the NZTA intervention hierarchy, and making sure that it's actually new infrastructure last, for the very reasons that Barry's pointed out. So as part of the next step, we're just talking about bridges in the comments, we absolutely will be modelling how to make good use, and that means extended capacity as well, of the bridges that we've got, and north-facing ramps, and a full interchange at Tedo Road, as some of the things that we model in this next phase. And obviously there'll also be a range of community ideas about other potential bridge locations, but just to give assurance to everybody that those things absolutely will be modelled. And that includes, like I say, making whether we increase capacity on existing bridges or how else we might be able to make the best use of the infrastructure we've already got before we look at extending new bridges. The point about having Cambridge connections with a 30-year transport plan is to recognise that if there is a new bridge, it does take a long time to build, and that's something that we've spoken about before, but also that all of the interventions that we suggest need to come on stream at the time they're needed. And so that is when growth occurs in certain places, when we reach certain sort of triggers, and we need to make sure that we've prepared the transport plan in a way that's hooked to those sorts of triggers, so that we can bring them on stream at the right time.
and can respond to where growth actually occurs, and how much we're able to really make the most of what we've got. So that's certainly in mind for the way that we develop the transport plan. The point then around the specific point that Barry made, where he pointed out for you in the strategic framework about reducing dependency on the existing corridors and bridges. From my point of view, that's something that can be done via each of the steps of the NZTA intervention hierarchy. As a council, we can think as if we are planning for additional growth cells, where do they go? And what is the load that you put on infrastructure, including transport infrastructure? You can think when you're managing demand, you can think about how you would, we'll say, spread the load of people travelling across the existing bridges, whether that's about variable times that you start at workplaces, whether it's about shifting to other modes so that not everybody's trying to get across by car. And the same about making the most of what you've got. How might we, one of the options that you might consider is then, do you have a bridge, particularly the high bridge, is it one way in the morning, another way in the evening, like the Auckland Harbour Bridge, for example? Those are all options you can consider about how you're going to make the most of what we've got before we actually, so there's no assumption that we have to jump to committing to a new bridge before we really make sure that we make the most of what we've got. So ideas about all of those things are strongly encouraged to make sure that we really do leverage the value of all of the infrastructure and the PT services, the bus services that we've already got going on. So perhaps I'll just leave it there, answer any questions about where we're up to, and then seek feedback from the community board about things that you would like to have considered.
Okay, just acknowledging too that you wanted to say out, so that's cool. Would you like to ask Katie any questions?
The appendix 1, the strategic framework, you're asking for feedback on, so the criteria, that was the word, or in general?
So the strategic framework itself has already been approved by the Strategic Policy and Planning Committee. But what I am seeking feedback about are whether there are aspects of that framework which are particularly important to you as we think about how we shape that out and build that out to inform the shortlist.
From my point of view, there is, again, we're not going to change the wording, but just there's a little bit of focus on enabling growth and supporting growth. Just want to be a bit careful that that's actually defined as a problem, rapid population economic growth, and then it's seen as sort of a solution. Just want council to keep in mind that can it be both? It's I think it's a problem. Our solutions should allow for growth if and when it occurs, but maybe not be the enablers of that growth outright as part of this project.
Fiona, did you want to ask a question? Oh. Chris, would you like to ask any questions before we move into the feedback?
Yeah, on the right-hand side of this framework, it mentions supporting vibrant social town centre. And I just checking in that refers to what town centre. Is it, I just referenced Leamington as being important, as vibrant and social, which, it's kind of going downhill over time rather than up in that respect a little bit. So just checking in that what that covers. It references Ahuaki, page 98, which I haven't referred to.
Yeah, so Ahuake itself actually just talks about the town centre here. But in feedback that we've already had, it's been really clear that the role of Leamington as a town centre is important, and making sure that we really think about how this work might enhance the role of the town centre and support that's come up. It'll be the same around from different ways about other industrial nodes like Hautapu, which also didn't exist at the time that it hadn't gone ahead in the way that it has now when Ahuake was formed. So we need to make sure that we're cognizant of all of those areas. But the Leamington Town Centre is something that we're quite aware of within the project. Yeah, thank you.
So there's a further meeting tomorrow night for the community reference group. Am I right? Yes. And I just kind of informing the community board as well that we have opportunity. I am attending, but through me, we can meet and talk about and influence ideas to go to that group. If tonight you don't have all the ideas at hand.
Okay, so we have some recommendations here, A through to D, and I'm not sure if we will potentially land on B and C tonight, but I understand, Joe, you might have some alternative recommendations that we could have a look at.
Okay, thank you. Either you've got the draft recommendation in your report, which is on the basis that you might be able to come up with a list of your cumulative feedback this evening. If you're not in a position to be able to do that, we can. I've got a recommendation on hand which I can share at the time, depending on what you want to do, which is just going to delegate authority to whoever you select to prepare and finalise the community board's feedback, which is the scenario where you're not able to reach agreement on your feedback this evening in the meeting.
I would suggest that maybe we need a bit more time, and it might be better to go with that as the option, so we can put together something together rather than right now. Would you agree? Okay. Okay, Joe, in that case.
Before I share, is there any ideas, the specific person that you'd like to delegate that authority to do it and in consultation with the other members?
You're happy to, Andrew? Oh, thanks. That's great.
I listen to News Talk ZB sometimes, Katie, and twice in the last 2 weeks have I heard people nationally calling in about transport issues in Cambridge. One referenced Cambridge Connections directly, another was about heavy trucks on Pope Terrace and the growth of the town. So I just think there's some reach with the communications people are talking about it. So that's a really good sign, I thought.
Yeah, I think I'd like to acknowledge that too, Katie. I saw the signage has gone up on Victoria Street, which, yeah, there's no reason why you can't walk past and not see it. And yeah, thank you too for allowing us to be part of those community meetings and events. We really appreciate that, and there's certainly commitment here to continue being part of those. There's nothing like getting feedback face to face. So thank you, and really good work from your team.
The attendance has been, thank you for your attendance. It's really lovely to be able to work alongside the community board to have council elected members there as well at some of these events as well, so people can hear directly and engage with you directly rather than just hearing from staff. So yeah, I really appreciate that, and so certainly I mean all your feedback would be really welcome, and it closes at 8 AM on the 9th of March.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so I see that Joe's put some recommendations up on the screen there. A seems pretty straightforward. B, we have a slight amendment, delegates authority to board member Myers to prepare and finalise the community board's feedback on transport ideas and proposed solutions as part of stage 2.1 community engagement for the Cambridge Connections transport plan in consultation with the community board members. And then recommendation C is delegates authority to board member Myers to prepare and this is the same. Oh. Okay, delegates authority to board member Myers to prepare and finalise the community board's feedback on the relative importance of the criteria in the strategic framework assessment, Appendix 1, to inform development of more detailed criteria for the evaluation of the shortlist options. Is there general consensus that is okay?
I said I was going to stay out of the substance of this, and I will. This is just a procedural discussion, okay? When I started on the community board, we always tried to come up with these ideas sitting here, and it didn't work. So I think you're completely right to take this offline, and you can consider it, and you'll do much, much richer submissions on that way. So I think you're totally on the right track there. I just was wondering about whether you should be the person doing this as chair of the community board rather than Andrew. Nothing wrong with Andrew, obviously, but the community board's a really significant player in this, and you as chair sort of hold the natural authority of the group. So we pretty much always had the chair, the delegate to prepare the submissions in the previous triennium, and I observed that working reasonably well. You'll be doing it together, but that's just an idea. I won't interfere, but I observed it working well, and yeah, you might want to consider it.
Yeah, acknowledge that. I am happy either way and acknowledge your feedback. Chris Gerda, do you have anything to say?
I think as a group, if we come up with our submission as a collective, I think it's irrelevant. I think like Andrew he's chair, he's deputy chair anyway, but if we're doing it as a collective, whether it's me or anybody else, it's irrelevant. I mean, it's just speaking on behalf of the whole board.
Okay, I suppose we'll reassure you though that there's certainly commitment to participate in those or attend those strategic planning and policy meetings as much as possible and practical, because this is one of our core focus areas for this triennium. So I think we're happy to retain Andrew as our representative, and I think we'll run through recommendations A to C, and I'll request someone to move those recommendations. Gerda, and second? Chris, great, thank you. All in favour, say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you, Katie. Yes. So next we've got an information report on speed limit changes outside of schools, and we were expecting Eric to be online, but he's actually graced us with his presence, which is lovely. So take a seat, Eric, and you're welcome to share your report when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair, members of the board. My name is Eric Vanderwell. I'm the program engineer in the transportation team council. My report is about the speed limit changes that we are required to implement around schools as part of new government regulation. Can I take the report as read? Thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions or queries.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. Easy to read, nice pictures there, fantastic. There's a statement here, school feedback will be sought so council understands access, rah-de-rah-de-rah. I'm just wondering about other feedback sought, the kids in the schools, 99% important, but other road units, maybe the connection on an arterial route or something else the school could do to remove interaction with that route might be important for the community as well. So you're seeking feedback from anyone else besides the schools about the speeds?
So that can come up as part of the school community discussion. So if there's a school gate that the principal of the school doesn't want to use or does want to use, that can be discussed and our plans can be fine-tuned to suit. But the regulation is very clear. We're required to implement it, and it's very, very narrow envelope of what we can do.
I just say this, like my kids go to Kaipaki School. I drive past there, and that perhaps could be a route to Hamilton for Cambridge connections if the speed was retained and not lowered at certain times. So it's that sort of conflict I just see arising sometimes.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Mike?
Hey, Eric, the 300 meters and the 600 meters kind of looks a bit weird on the maps. Is that because it's referencing or referring to gates rather than the school? Like sometimes it looks more and sometimes it looks
it's the
less.
gates, it's the access points.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's 150, so for urban schools it's a total of 300 meters, about 150 each way. And then we apply a little bit of logic because some schools have overlapping areas. and there will be intersections and stuff. So, yeah. That's specified, but there is a little bit of wriggle room in that. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I think we're happy with that. There's a recommendation here that the Cambridge Community Board receives a report of Eric Vanderwell, Program Engineer Transportation, titled Speed Limit Changes Outside Schools. Could I have someone move this recommendation, please? Pip, and I'm happy to second. All in favour say aye. Against, carried. Thank you so much. And next, we've got a long-term plan update from Melissa Russo. Thank you for coming along tonight, Melissa. We'll let you provide your update when you're ready.
Thank you. It's good to be back. So yes, we are in the early stages of developing the long-term plan for 27-37. For those of you who may not be aware, this is Council's key strategic planning document. It outlines all the services, activities and projects that we'll be looking to fund over the next 10 years. It does also include what they're going to cost and how those activities and projects will be funded. It also includes information on rates, fees and charges, which are separate from rates. So these are things like dog control fees, and also council's debt levels. So attached to the report, you'll see this roadmap as one of the attachments. So this is kind of a stylized version of our project plan. So it sets out the 6 key stages that we'll be working through to develop the long-term plan, each of the touch points with our elected members, and also the kind of key considerations as we go through each of those stages. So that's just kind of a reference document that we will be using to communicate kind of where we're at in the process with elected members. But obviously it's also kind of a nice way to summarize the process for the community and groups like this. So this is excuse me, obviously the first touch point with the community board on the long-term plan, but is our intention to have this as a standing item. So you as a board are regularly kept updated with how we're progressing along this project. Give you obviously the opportunity to ask questions. In addition to that, we do have a lot of workshops with our elected members to get a steer on a whole raft of different things, and the community board chairs will be invited to attend the open workshops. Again, just to keep the community across the process, where we're at, help you as a board understand where we're at, and yeah, again, connection back to the community, and help any conversations that you're having with the community throughout the development. So I'll leave it there, but yeah, happy to take questions.
Okay, I'll start with a quick question. Just in relation to the roadmap, rates and affordability is one of the key concerns of community at the moment. And has there been any consideration perhaps of stage 4 maybe shifted up so we can talk about funding and what's available first and how we afford this long-term plan, and then look at where we want to be and what we'll consider? Any considerations around that?
Yeah, so if you look at stage 2, the where we want to be, it includes the strategic direction, finance, and the finance strategy. So that's where we'll essentially set the financial envelope, so to speak, and it really addresses all of the concerns that you've just talked about. So we will be doing that right up front in the process.
Just following on from that, Melissa, it says on stage 2, April 26, finish 2 months. So just tell us, you might be at our next meeting, perhaps, with asking your input on something regarding Charlotte's question. Is that what you mean?
We, sorry, so these stages are kind of, or the timeframes are kind of a loose indication. We will be providing the board an update of wherever we're at at that point in time. I would just like to take the opportunity to obviously note that the weekend's events will impact the timeframes around the LTP. We'll try and minimise that as much as possible, but yeah, this is an opportunity for you to ask questions, and yeah, just wherever we're at in the process.
Okay, maybe just a little bit clearer. So what's the next opportunity for the community to be involved in consultation about this LTP?
Formally, with the community, we're looking to have a consultation or engagement phase with the community around our levels of service. So normally through an LTP, we'll have the formal consultation sort of near the end, again, as kind of indicated through stage 6. And then I guess the difference with this time round is we know that our levels of service are quite an issue for this long-term plan. And so we're looking to have that engagement with our community a lot earlier than, a lot earlier on in the process. And that will obviously inform, following on parts and stage 6.
Thank you.
Melissa, where have you, well, how do you know that there are concerns around levels of service? Do you like gather data from CRMs, or, how are you gathering that?
So we know we do have data around that, and we've got, so we've looked at all of the kind of community sentiment data and information that we've gathered over the last 2 years. So that's one of the key pieces of information that we're looking at. But we're also looking at this from an affordability perspective. And so where council, we need to understand kind of where the community's priorities are in terms of the services that council does provide. Are they still the same? Or through this process, is there an opportunity to kind of shift those in alignment with where the community's priorities are?
Okay. Yes, go.
Can I just supplement that answer, which I thought was really good, and I was thinking exactly the same. Last LTP, what we did is right at the outset said we think levels of service should remain the same, okay? And then you work the whole way through and you get the budgets at the end, and they involve quite significant rates rises, as everyone knows. So this time we wanted to be much more sort of transparent about the whole process, about the trade-off between the levels of service that are provided and the cost. So that's why I fully support that the level of service discussion is sort of socialised early, and we want to try and do it in this kind of transparent manner of, if you want this, this is what it costs kind of thinking, okay? And the more the community and the community board can be involved in that, the better. It's a much richer conversation than just saying rates rises are too high. Like any household budget, there's trade-offs involved, and the more people that understand the trade-offs, the better. So that's kind of the thinking there, okay?
Yeah, good points. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Yeah, big piece of work, very interesting piece of work, and absolutely something that we'll be interested in engaging. So looking forward to your updates. Thanks, Melissa.
Charlotte, sharing the wisdom of sitting here for a few years. Andrew Brown, the previous chair of finance and corporate, when he left, he said to me, he was on, I think 3 or 4 terms or something, maybe 3 terms. He said the thing that he most wished he had known at the beginning of his time was the importance of the long-term plan. If something's not in the long-term plan, it doesn't happen in council world, okay? People can come along with these brilliant ideas, and you go, oh, yeah, that's cool, but we can't do it because it's not in the long-term plan. So it's really, it is the key planning document really for council on this 3-year cycle. And in my first term in the community board, we kind of didn't recognise that, and we weren't into it enough, didn't understand it, didn't input into it enough. Second time around, last triennium, we were much better. So yeah, I'll do everything I can to help you people inject yourselves at the right point to get what you want in there. It's really important. And it's easy to miss in your first traineum, the importance of it. You only get to do it once in a traineum, happens right in the middle year, and then you don't get another go for 3 years.
Yeah, thanks for that, Monty. Great, thanks, Melissa. So we better do our recommendation that the Cambridge Community Board receives the report of Melissa Russo, Manager Strategy, titled 2027-37 Long-Term Plan Overview and Community Board Engagement. Could I have a mover, please? Gerda and second. Pip, thank you. All in favour say aye. Against, carried. Great. And Joe, now you're going to have a chat to us about appointment of community board working groups.
Thank you. If you're all okay, I'll just stay sitting here just in case it's easier for me if you've got any changes to any of the recommendations, and we've got the next 3 reports, I think, are mine, if that's okay. So the first one we have there is to establish some working groups for this traineum. This is just the ones that are based on the working groups that the board had last time and are linked in with the delegations that you've got from council. It'll be over to the community board what other ones, if any, they wanted established later on in the traineum. So you can do those at any stage. So we have there the Anzac Day and Armistice Remembrance Day working group, establishing that. So that will have the role of organising the annual Anzac Dawn and civic commemorations and the annual Armistice Remembrance Sunday civic commemorations and associated events. And it's the purpose in there, the delegation and the membership. So it's a mix of community board members and community representatives in there. And then there's the Bahara Sister Cities Working Group, which is again is a mix of board members and community representatives. And that's got the responsibility of the delegation that's been given to the Cambridge Community Board of maintaining and enhancing the Sister Cities relationship between Cambridge and Bahara. And then the last one there we have in terms of working group is the Lekawa Sister City Working Group. Same principle with board members and community representatives, and that will be looking after this. It's intended that will look after the Sister Cities relationship between Cambridge and Lekawa. Does anyone have any questions about those working groups or purpose or roles?
I think we're probably quite happy just to work through recommendation A to D. So do I need to? No, okay. All right. Can I just have someone move? I'm happy to move. And second, Monty, thank you. All in favour say aye. Against, carried. Great. And Joe, do you want to take us through the Anzac Day 2026 budget?
Thank you. So the purpose of this report is to present a proposed budget for the 26 Anzac Day services and events. This is based on last year's costs. This really is, I appreciate that you've only just set up the working group, but the idea really will be that working group, once it gets started, needs to start making some bookings and kind of commitments, because we're not actually that far away from Anzac Day. So passing this report will enable that working group to get started as soon as they're appointed.
Okay, any questions before we look at the recommendations? So again, we've got 2 recommendations there, A and B. Would someone be prepared to move? Monty, second. Pip, all in favour say aye. Against, carried. And then discretionary grant funding 25-26.
Thank you. So the purpose of this report is to set the criteria for the 25-26 year and also agree the basis on which you're going to accept applications. I'm appreciating that there's not actually very long left in this financial year. What you will see in the recommendations in the report is based on last year. So that's about if you look at recommendation B and I, about those not-for-profit groups or clubs or organisations. Then we go on to look at applications won't be considered for expenses or events that have already happened, so nothing retrospective. Failure to return an accountability form may jeopardise any future funding. Your organisation applies for only groups, clubs or organisations that have a base in Cambridge or Rangitoto wards can apply. This was something the community board applied last term to make sure that they got local applications. And we've just made one slight amendment to the wording there to add in the word wards. And also to clarify, this was a staff recommendation, an additional one, just to make sure that we're focusing on those, really those local groups and services, as the applications are considered from lobby groups or action pressure groups for personal or commercial gain or for professional sports. So that was really one of the ones just to kind of further clarify the criteria from the previous year. You will see that on page 3 of your report, there's a table, and that includes some alternative things that you may want to consider. You may want to look in terms of those accountability forms. You may want to look to see if you want to be stricter this time. And there's some example wording if, say, you didn't want to consider applications from any organisation that hadn't completed their accountability form when it was due. So that is an option for you to discuss if you want to include that. Some other things that you might want to think about, including additional criteria. If you want to set a maximum level of applications of the funds that they can apply for, say, for example, 2,000 or 5,000, or whatever figure you come up with. You could consider not funding operational expenses, and you might want to also talk about something else that you could factor in, is looking at eligibility of applicants that have already received council funds in the financial year. That's just kind of a starter for 10 in terms of criteria. You can kind of come up with any others that you think might best help you distribute that grant. So that will be over for you to discuss. And I just want to note that in terms of the recommendation, we're recommending that you just do one round of funding, and rather than accepting ad hoc applications, because that just ensures that you have a competitive process for those applications when they come in. Has anyone got any questions? Otherwise, I'll leave you to discuss those criteria.
Okay, it looks like no immediate questions. I personally am comfortable with the criteria that's suggested, and would like to look at each application that comes through under those that set criteria on a case-by-case basis. But happy to have your input.
Sorry, I was absent from that meeting. Can you just clarify that you're staying with the status quo, or you're looking to accept some of the further recommendations from Joe in that statement?
No, we haven't. We haven't had any discussion about Joe's.
Yeah, I think Joe's recommendations are prudent, and we should consider adding those in. I'm interested to see what other people here think.
Just to be clear, Andrew, you talking about the criteria in the boxes, not the additional potentials underneath?
Okay, so let's discuss the first one. So only not-for-profit groups, clubs or organisations can apply for funding, must be providing a local community or welfare service for the benefit of the wider Waipa community, i.e. not a private club or business. So the recommendation to retain to ensure funding is targeted to those local groups that need it most. Yeah, accept that. Okay. The next one, applications will not be considered for expenses or events that have already happened, retrospective. We'll retain that. Okay. Only groups, clubs or organisations that have a base in Cambridge or Maungatautari can apply. Yeah. Failure to so we recommend that we retain. This is to ensure the money is going towards the betterment of the local communities that the board represent.
Is that Joe's recommendation is to add the word wards in there? Has that been included in your recommendation, Charlotte?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So failure to return an accountability form may jeopardize any future funding your organisation applies for. So we're recommending we retain that. Accountability forms are an important mechanism for ensuring funds are spent on for the purpose included in the application. That sounds straightforward to me.
Can we change may jeopardize to will jeopardize? To make it more accountable? Otherwise it's a sort of up in the air.
Okay, we can make that recommendation.
Yep, do you like will jeopardize or do you like the wording? You don't want it to have not considered, like the wording in the table, funding applications will not be considered if accountability forms which have become due from previous financial years have not been submitted? Or would you just like to change that to failure to return accountability for will jeopardize any future funding?
I think we were looking for the more.
Yeah, so shall we pull the wording from that table if you're happy with that? It's quite clear.
Sorry, I did. Can I argue against that? The reason being, if you put that in there as the imperative, as in you will not fund someone in future, you've taken away optionality that you might want to retain, and you've even created a potential problem for yourselves that if you do subsequently fund someone and it gets found out that they hadn't submitted their accountability report, you haven't complied with your own rules. So I would always keep it open-ended for a small group like this. I'd maximum discretion to this group as a discretionary fund. I would stick with how it was, that it may, you're indicating it's important, but you're not giving yourselves a hard and fast rule that you might live to regret.
Yeah, good point. Good point, Monty, thank you. So we will continue to use the word may.
Yep.
And then applications will not be considered from lobby groups or action pressure groups for personal or commercial gain or for professional sports. So it is recommended to include this criterion to clearly specify that these activities do not fall within the scope of local community or welfare service. Yeah, okay. So the other options, maximum level of funding can be applied with, I personally am really keen to just keep it open.
Well, I probably agree with capping it, but happy to go with the majority.
At the same time, you've got, a small amount of money and, you probably will always have a lot of people who want to access it. And so almost that by definition means that, no one particular party could dominate. Otherwise, you're going to disadvantage others.
Yeah, I think
We should retain flexibility.
Yeah, I think it's something that we look at and discuss on a case-by-case basis and keep it quite open. And then the next one, not funding operational expenses. Do we want to add that or keep it out?
I would not support adding that. Having been on the receiving end of this at Maungatautari Ecological Island Trust, it was the bane of our lives because a lot of funding organisations have this, and it's just this sort of arbitrary criteria that it's really unhelpful when you're trying to run a charity that you can't apply for operational funding. Again, it's something that this group can decide on. Like if you want to produce the promote or help support, you know, some shiny new project, great, but sometimes the operational stuff is really, really important to these charities.
What's operational, and what's major project, you know, yeah, it's real, you know, if you're gonna try to get rid of rats, you know, is that operations or a major project? Well, gotta keep flexibility.
I suppose that the driver is so that the community can clearly see where the money's being allocated. They often people like a physical, tangible response to their funding. So just keep that in mind. And then it starts to get a bit grey sometimes when you've got operational. That would be the argument against it. But as long as we're clear on our group think, then should I say that? We'll be okay. Thank you.
And then the third one is, will we consider eligibility of applicants that have already received council funds in the financial year?
Again, I wouldn't support this going in. This used to be in, and it was sort of only variably applied. And it again is unhelpful because sometimes these organisations are getting funding. The Safer Community Trust is a classic example. It gets some baseline funding from council, but then was coming for specific projects like the first aid courses that the previous community board supported. And if you had that rule, technically you couldn't have done it. So again, it's just, I just think it's an unhelpful rule if it was introduced to your own discretionary fund, our own discretionary fund.
It's on the application form. They have to declare their other applications to council so we can clearly see it from every person.
Okay, so it sounds like we're comfortable to leave those three.
Apologies, actually, I should have just made a note at the start when I no, it's just about the timing of the funding round, because we were hoping we were going to have your meeting tonight to set the criteria, and then Prongi Awards on Thursday, and then Te Amuru's the following Tuesday. But given what has happened, we have had to postpone Prongi Award Committee till next week. We couldn't hold that meeting this week with everything going on. So just in terms of the timeframes that I included in the report, we're looking at, it's going to be looking at more like 10th of March to 10th of April. So that will still coincide with when you need to fit in with when you need to make your determination on your applications. Apologies for that. I should have noted that at the start.
We're comfortable with that. Okay, so we might move to the recommendations then. Yeah, yes, as per report, A, B, and C. Could I have someone, Monty and Pip? Thank you. All in favour say aye. Against, carried. Okay, now we move to Chairperson's report, which I will take as read. And happy to answer any questions. I will just note one thing. I did ask for an update on speed bumps following the letter last time to be brought to the agenda. I would like to have some clarity just around what's happening in that space. So potentially something that we'll have more discussions with staff on later on down the track.
Absolutely, and if I just note that at the moment, Evelise Wright, who would be the best person to speak to, is actually standing up our incident control centre for Waipa District, so she wouldn't be available today, but I know that she's very keen to be able to come and talk to you about that.
Can I just ask a question on the homeless situation? So you had the meeting and you were discussing of looking at individuals why they are homeless. Is there any update on that?
No, so a project group was set up and to the best of my knowledge, that that group is going to be going out to the community to get information or just a better understanding of what Cambridge's situation is, and then we're going to come back as a wider working group and probably look at like what happens after that to help manage the homelessness issue in Cambridge.
So just with the meeting that I have with the Cambridge Trophy communities, most of their call outs initially was homeless people. A lot of those people, because they were onto it, has now moved on somewhere else. We don't know where. I've also looked at the model that they use in Norway, and they place the people first, and then wherever, you know, in some sort of accommodation, and then they look at the reasons why they are homeless, because they say sometimes there's huge reports on that. Sometimes the mental health issues disappear when they are in a sturdy community or a sturdy home. Is there that's something that will be discussed in working groups, like different ways of thinking around this?
Yeah, I think at this stage, the outcome of that meeting was to try and get a better understanding of what's happening in that space, and then look to how can we help support and manage that. So yeah, I anticipate that there will be more discussions around that second piece once. Yeah.
Do you have a time frame around that? Because winter is coming up, and
You're welcome to provide a time frame. You might.
Look, I'll just try and report as best I can remember. So a small group did meet before a bigger group is going to meet. You were just trying to narrow down how big the problem is, and making sure it is a proportional problem to the response. So for that, the next whole of group meeting, I haven't got a date apart from, I'm thinking it's the start of March, and it'll be based at this point out of one of the agencies in town here. The agency didn't attend, that's what I don't want to say who it is, but the agent, it would be basically the agency, because they deal with homelessness, rough sleepers more than any other one single agency. It's not really an agency. And then what we are looking at doing is a piece of work before winter, and I think we set down in April to go out and engage. We thought we'd get them before winter. So yeah, so the next meeting will come out. It'll be local, and it'll be down the road here. Yeah.
Thank you for jumping in. Any other questions? Okay. So there's one recommendation that the Cambridge Community Board receives a report of myself titled Chairperson's Report, February 2026. Could I have someone move? Andrew, and second. Chris, thank you. All in favour say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. And now pages 69 to 72 of our agenda, we have the Treasury report for the period ended 31 January.
I'll just take that report as read, and if anyone's got any questions.
Okay, so we'll just, I think quite straightforward, we'll move to the recommendation that the Cambridge Community Board receive the report of Nada Milne, financial accountant, titled Treasury Report for the period ended 31 January 2026. Gerda, happy to move, and I can second. All in favour say aye. Against, carried. Right, now we'll move around to board members' reports. Shall we go this way? Start with you, Monty.
It's fairly early in the calendar year, so I don't have a whole lot to report. It's only the 17th of February, right? So council has essentially met 3 times in that period. There was, working backwards, the emergency meeting the other day to set up the Merrill Fund that me and Mike has already spoken to. Week previous was just a workshops and briefings day, which I actually can't say much about because it was all in PX, because it was all commercial stuff around the waters transition. Okay, as you know, the Waikato Waters Limited is taking over on 1st of July, so it was to do with that. And then strategic planning and policy met on 4 February, the week before. You've basically been informed on the 2 big ticket items there, which were the LTP update that Melissa's given you, and the Cambridge Connections update, which Katie's given you. So I don't need to say anything further about them. probably there were a couple of submissions to a government policy that we commented on and sent off. They were to do with the rates capping legislation, which we the tenor of the submission was supporting the direction of travel of trying to get rates under control, but just pointing out that the Growth Council's had some unique challenges there that maybe need to be taken into account in that process. And then there was another one on for NZTA on variable speed limits at a couple of state highway intersections around the place, not particularly relevant to Cambridge, and they just went through with full support. They're those ones that go down from 100 to 60 when there's someone coming, the light changes as in on the way to Tauranga. And then probably the last substantive one was of interest to Cambridge Community Board is private plan change 37, Ryder Park. You guys all know where this is. This is Leamington towards Mangatauari, right? You all know where that is. Off the top of my head, 98 hectares, so very big. Private plan change. What that means is that it's generated by the landowners, and it's a process that you go through under the Resource Management Act, and it got accepted. It's a procedural step that it got accepted that it's in the process of what you need to do to get a private plan change through. Okay, it met the statutory criteria, so that means that council wasn't offering a view whether they supported or didn't support it. It had just met the procedural standard required for it to advance. Okay, so yeah, probably haven't got much more to say about that. It'll be something that'll be you'll have a fair bit of exposure to as it clanks through its statutory process. Okay, so that's really all I've got to update. I'll probably have a little bit more next time round because there will have been a few more meetings. Any questions?
Just a comment. Lots of people, I think, are already talking about that private plan change. So yeah, it could be one that gets quite a bit of community interest, and also yeah, from
any clarification about timing for opportunity for community to have a say on that, their view on that?
No, I can't comment on that. It's publicly notified. Yeah, it's publicly notified. So yes, there will be plenty. Can't talk about that, but you'll be well informed. Okay. Yeah.
Would you like to share?
Nothing specific other than sort of, trying to connect with as many people as possible. And, we as a group can sort of, one of the things that has been from all the way through the beginning of this triennium has been to sort of make sure we connect as much as possible with the community. And we're just in the process of sort of, there's a big schedule out with sort of all the potential meeting opportunities over the next sort of 3 to 4 months. I personally have put together a sort of a thought that I, would probably attend the Cambridge market every fortnight for till the schedule changes, which is about May, and try to sort of see if we can find a flag and a bit of a sort of, this is Waipa District Council and, myself and any other member and any other community members can hopefully sort of get there on a 2-weekly basis as much as anything, just to say, what are you thinking? What are you feeling? As I think Joe said the other day in the council meeting, that sort of people just want to tell you what they think. No, we have to be seen to be hearing people and responding as appropriate. So hopefully over the next little while we can maybe agree what schedule is going to work for the Cambridge people, and we can just have a bit of a council representation, just so we can talk to our constituents and what's impacting people, and just give them an opportunity to hear their thoughts. Because I think one thing we had in the last training was like, well, there was the council and then there was the community, and there wasn't probably that connection that people wanted. So hopefully that's going to work.
Thanks so much, Pip. Chris?
The last meeting we had a chap, Roger Dean, that had a model of the church, of the Anglican Church, looking for a place to home it. we spent quite a bit of time trying to figure out how to contact him because we had no phone numbers, but we found out. And I contacted him, and we've been able to place that church at CNR out at Hautapu in the museum. It's not gone out there just yet because it's going to go upstairs, and they're still preparing the upstairs facilities for that type of thing. But I've taken Roger there, and Roger is very pleased with the idea. So that's worked really well. And then on the 16th of December, I attended the Rough Sleepers the Rough Sleepers meeting. To be quite honest, I was quite amazed how many people do actually sleep rough in Cambridge. It's a lot bigger than what I thought it was. And doing a little bit of investigation, I found that a lot of these people, they prefer to be on their own. And so to try and amalgamate them into groups is not as easy as what it sounds. And one of the big things that comes up each time is their security, their fear of being bashed up and stuff like that. So it's not an easy one to deal with, but it's one of those things that it's bigger than what I am and what I think the board is. It's something that we need to be very aware of, but there are agencies that are dealing with this type of thing, and they've got the facilities and the ability to do some of this. And then on the 5th of January, Charlotte and I removed the Christmas decorations down the main street. That was a pretty hard job, really. It was just clipping a few ties and putting them in the back of the ute. The only things I couldn't figure out where to go with the decorations, and I got a bit lost. On the 10th of February, I attended the council strategy session part 2 at TA, and we listened to what the strategies were from the different departments and got a bit of an update on all that sort of stuff. And also on the 8th of February, I attended the Trash and Treasure fair out at the rugby grounds, just to sort of be a little bit of a support to Katie and the girls. And but what I did kind of feel there is that there was probably more people from out of town than in town, and I wondered whether we do the same thing but at the market here in the square, where there's more Cambridge people. And yeah, so I kind of feel that if we can do something like that, I'd be quite happy to help out. So yeah.
Great, thank you, Chris. Kia
Okay, I had a meeting with the Friendship Society for Lekinwa. Very interesting, very motivated group of people. I also met with Debs too, because there was a bit of overlap between Community Board, Council, Rotary, and Friendship Society. So that's been sorted now. I had a meeting with him. Rotary is very involved and very keen. The focus is on the group coming out from Lekinwa in December and what they're going to do. So I had a meeting with Eva on Sunday night after my open homes. She's also done an audit of all the assets, because that's all over the show, and they want to have it in one spot so that it can be accessed easier, and we know what we have. So that's done. Another thing, I had a meeting with to Cambridge Safer Communities Board, very well organized. I was very impressed with how they handle that and how the amount of work they actually put in. So very, very good group. Then I am having a meeting with concerned citizens on Friday regarding the Cambridge Road site where they dump all the building material. There's a lot of research has gone into that, so I just want to understand from their point of view, and then I'll speak to Quentin. Is it Quentin or Quentin? Quentin, he emailed me today and I said to him, I'll get back to him next week once I have a better understanding of what the concerns are. On the Christmas projects, Charlotte, the working group, there's a working group current? Not? Yeah, because I've got some fantastic ideas around that that won't cost anyone money, but input from community. So that's me.
Yeah, just on the Christmas decorations. Yes, we need to put together that working group. I've had a member of the public contact me again today who's really keen to get some momentum there and do something really cool and vibrant for the community that doesn't cost a lot of money. So we definitely need to start working on that. Andrew?
I touched base with members of the rural community about Plan Change 25, and they all seem to be quite content with the progress here and the earlier work last year, the consultation, and they were quite happy. So we decided as a community board not to put in a further submission will be heard about that. It was the bad weather on Friday, Saturday, you know, they've largely affected you know, the southwest of our district and Otaronga, Waitomo. I was driving through the district on Friday night and it was incredibly torrential across the whole district, so I knew something was up there. I talked to Fonterra about it, and there was 10, now 6 dairy farms that can't have their milk collected and they're around the side of Porongia, and they've been in liaison with the council, very impressed with the council's operation to get infrastructure back in place. Usually with a heavy weather event, it's like all the power's out, or all these trees are blown over, and the farmers are often dealing with themselves and things on their land. But this is actually more of an infrastructural thing with the council, so it's a little bit different for them. And the weather was apparently, it's quite isolated with the topography, and where the rain fell, there wasn't a swath of farms in one area that were kind of taken out or affected. So it's pockets over the place, and that's allowed. There's a good resource of contractors, and the council's able to get around because there's just limited areas where it's been heavily affected. So I think the farming community on a whole is managing through that quite well. There were some roads closed at Temuro as well, I noticed, and I touched base with some farming friends up there, but they said no, it wasn't too bad. It was just more of a precautionary thing on the gravel roads up there. I've had contact about the Lake Karapiro master plan review, just from sort of powerboat users. Really, I got a lot of kind of heat from them about they're concerned about their access across to the backwater. So, you know, I placated them. I told them about 800 submissions were made, roughly half for and against, 4 powered and 4 non-powered users. I talked to David Varco about that. So I've been in touch and quite happy with how things have gone there. You might have seen the paper. We got a bit of a write-up there. The Cambridge Connections Community Reference Group met 2 weeks ago, and to cover the first half of the long list solution ideas, which was integrated planning and managed demand, which I circulated with our board. And tomorrow night's a follow-up meeting, which we're going to talk about the best use of the existing system and new infrastructure. Katie, I don't remember that meeting you just talked about. I think you said there's a mail drop going out. There were leaflets. Maybe could you just remind me, you know, what you've done to communicate with the community recently?
Yes, so there'll be a mail drop that goes to every household and every PO box number in the Cambridge and Maungatāturi ward. We're still investigating how to reach landowners who are not resident in the district, who won't get that mail drop, and we're just working through the sort of privacy issues of what people have signed up to receive and what they haven't. But we are aware that that's been something that we've been asked for in the past for Cambridge Connections, but we haven't got to the bottom of that yet, but we are trying to. So that mail drop will go out each week through the whole engagement period. We have a full page ad in the Cambridge News. Each week it's about a slightly different topic, but the key information about how people can provide feedback remains the same. That is online by scanning a QR code, by coming and getting a paper form if people would prefer to fill out a paper form, which they can pick up from the centre here. So that happens each week, and then we've got social media, which with new material going out each week to keep prompting people, as well as specific engagement with particular community groups. We had at the Trash and Treasure Market, so thank you to Chris and Charlotte who came to that. We have we had a pop-up outside the BNZ during the day, during this morning. We have another one scheduled during the work week, which I can't remember the date off the top of my head. And we do have time at the Cambridge Market on the Saturday at the end of this month. And so I had circulated what those dates were, but I can just recirculate those for anyone who would like to attend any of those. So those are the sort of key touch points for the community.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Doing a great job, Katie. The Pahoro group, I've met with Liz Stolwick, Philip Coles, Lana Mackay, and we've talked about doing a rural exchange. There's been an advert to go out in the paper shortly and to on the Facebook groups of rural communities about an exchange program for some students from New Zealand to travel to Pahoro, rural students to experience farming over there, and that would take place in June of this year. So applications are going to be sought shortly, and you will see more about that when I suppose when the advert goes live. And also just Mike, your announcement about the private plan change 37, we've all received calls from members of the public about that, so we'll actively watch that space. Thank you.
Thanks for that. Yes, I agree. The Cambridge Connections communication has been really good. And thank you for the videos, by the way, because one of the key things that I'm really passionate about is helping the community to understand the situation. They're very good. So I've tried to share those. So I've provided quite a few updates in the Chair's report already. But just in addition to that, I don't think I've mentioned that I've set up a Facebook page for the Cambridge Community Board. So I'm trying to share and encourage engagement as much as possible in the key things that are impacting this community. For example, have been sharing the response updates as we've been moving through this latest weather event. Yes, I went along to the Cambridge Connections Trash and Treasure event recently, and actually it was quite interesting to get perspectives from some people who live outside Cambridge on Cambridge's traffic woes. And I suppose the key message on their side was to look at the big picture and don't get into the weeds around 10-minute congestion. So that was quite interesting. I also attended a LinkedIn local event that the Cambridge Business Chamber facilitated last week, which was really great. A really good mix of business people, but also people that work in Hamilton, but live in Cambridge that we don't see as much on a day-to-day basis. So that was a really fantastic event. I've just come from the Cambridge Commercial Property Owners Group and had some really good questions as I spoke about our advocacy work and what our Cambridge Community Board is doing. Just encouraged better use of Intino to report requests, but also some interesting feedback came around how we engage youth, which is actually quite a common, it's a common question that I'm being asked lately. So that's a particular area that I would like to talk to the community advisors probably about in terms of whether that is a subcommittee of this Cambridge Community Board or whether it's an advisory group internally or something to that description. So I will park that, but it's something that I would really love to see progressed. Also had a really positive meeting with the Cambridge Arts Trust with Deputy Mayor Joe Davies-Colley. So that's a group that wants to, that's a good example of a group that wants some support to enable their work. They want to add cultural vibrancy and vibrancy is probably the right word to this town. They want to fundraise, they want to engage with mana whenua, they want to basically have all things in place but work within the policy and guidelines of the council to enable their work. And yeah, we've had an interesting initial discussion just to understand their perspective, and we'll probably be organising a meeting with staff just to try and progress that. But what I have invited the Cambridge Arts Trust to do is come to this meeting and help us to also as a group understand what they're trying to achieve and how we can best help enable them to achieve that. And yeah, just a little bit of grassroots stuff. Still trying to walk up and down the streets, which is really important, bumping into people. And yeah, had the pleasure of doing that with Deputy Mayor Joe Davies-Colley the other day. And I think that's where the pearl is, you know, feedback and things come to us. That's, yeah, not really, people don't really think about giving you feedback until they see you. So really trying to commit to continue doing that. But that's really it from my side. So I think I've been really mean and made you go through a whole 2 hours without a break. So I think we'll close the meeting now. The next Cambridge Community Board meeting will be held at 6 p.m. on Tuesday, 17th of March 2026. And just a reminder that that meeting will be at the Cambridge Town Hall, which will be really great to see that space, experience it, and learn more about what's happening with the wider Cambridge Town Hall Trust project. Yeah, thank you, everyone. Thank you so much to the members of the public who are still here and to those online. And we really appreciate it. Have a lovely evening. Sun's gone down